Welcome everybody to Mom Street USA. My name is Jackie, aka Wishes Mama, and I am joined as always by my lovely co-host Kate, aka the Disney Cicerone. And this evening we are here to chat about Genie Plus and what Genie Plus looks like, what it is, and kind of how it works, and tips for doing it with your family, all those good things. So if you need Genie Plus help, you have come to the right place this evening.
Indeed. And I was kind of thinking about this earlier and I'm like, well, Jackie uses Genie Plus way more often than I do. I do use it at both Disneyland and Disney World, but I don't use it nearly as much. So you might hear a lot of Jackie tonight, and that's okay because we love her and she's great at talking about Genie Plus and answering your questions. I think I've got the Disneyland part of this. I can add that in.
Perfect.
But I'm very excited to hear all the tips and advice you have for doing as well, what we need, what we don't need, and all those kinds of things. So thank you for bringing your wisdom to this episode.
Yeah, and it's funny, I kind of just ended up in this self-proclaimed expert level Genie Plus because I just do it so often. For those of you who maybe don't know, I do work with our good friend tour guide Barbie, who does help her travel agent clients book their Genie Plus. So I've been able to help her a lot do stuff like that. I often help our friend Kirk at Walrus Carp when he is on live booking. So I just have a lot of experience. So I'm going to give you as much information as I can. I may go kind of quickly through some of it just because I want to make sure that I get through everything. At the end, we do plan on opening it up for just a question and answer section kind of at the very, very end, but feel free to post your questions like Kate mentioned earlier in the middle of this, and we'll kind of hop around as we go. But let's jump in and let's just talk about an overview.
I do have a question right off the bat, and I'm just going to mention this. Ben is asking, what's the difference between Genie Plus for Disneyland rather than Walt Disney World? And we're gonna go over that as we go through here. I think it's important that we probably explain what it is first, and then we'll go into kind of some of the differences, if that makes sense. So.
Yes, absolutely. And there are small differences, but they're there, and we will do our best to very clearly differentiate for you guys as to not to confuse anybody. Let's talk about.
It's not confusing already.
It's going to be great. We got this, you guys. You got this. Okay.
Yes.
So let's talk about just Genie Plus in general. What is Genie Plus? How does it function? What is the purpose of it? But basically, Genie Plus is the fastpass system. So if you're familiar with the fastpass system from years ago that Disney was using, this is now what has replaced that fastpass system. And it is a system that allows you to shorten wait times. So it won't get you immediately on a ride. Generally say that it should be a 15-minute wait or less in a perfect situation if you are using Genie Plus to get on your rides. So Genie Plus books what are called Lightning Lanes. And the Lightning Lane is the time that gives you your hour return window for whatever attraction you're booking for. So Genie Plus is the overall, and then underneath Genie Plus you have your Lightning Lanes. Now, I should also mention, we're not going to talk about it much this evening, but the other half of Genie Plus is that it will give you a kind of suggestions throughout the day on your My Disney Experience app.
It will do that.
It will. They're not great suggestions all the time. So I wouldn't
caution you so much.
Unless you have really gone in and specifically tailored it and cleared things off and added things and taken a lot of time that you don't really need to do ahead of time, then it's decent. But I would not necessarily pay super close attention to that aspect of Genie Plus. So I'll just want to mention that. If you have more questions about that, send me a message because it's just much easier for me to talk one-on-one with people about that.
Yeah. I would say that it would behoove Disney to send you where they want to send you at any particular time of the day to manage the crowds. And so they're going to encourage you to go in certain directions because of that, which you may not want to go in, or it might not be the best interest for you. It's the best interest for Disney. So
right, exactly.
That's all
so that's why I would just caution the use of that aspect. But tonight we're going to be focusing on lightning lanes and how those can help you and kind of what all that is all about. So Genie Plus Disney World can be purchased midnight day of that you are going to use it. Used to be ahead of time, not anymore. You have to do it day of. Literally right at midnight it becomes available, so you can purchase it anytime between midnight and 7 a.m. and I'll get to what that means in a little bit. So after midnight it becomes available at Disneyland. 2 different ways that you can purchase. Kate, you want to chat about that?
Well, it's interesting because I haven't purchased Disneyland tickets in a while, so I haven't a Magic Key Holder pass, but it says that you can purchase them with your ticket. Did you confirm that? Because that's interesting. I didn't realize that.
That according to what the website says and how I interpreted the website, Disneyland, you can still purchase Genie Plus ahead of time, like you used to be able to do with Disney World.
Yeah, but regardless, if you have a Magic Key or you haven't purchased it ahead of time, you can purchase it once you have entered the turnstile at Disneyland or California Adventure, depending which one you're going to. So you have to get through the turnstile first, and then you can purchase it and start booking. If you have purchased it with a ticket ahead of time, you still have to get through that turnstile before they allow you to book anything. So got to get into the park. That's the most important thing to know for Disneyland. Get into the park first, and then you can book things.
Yes, exactly. So like Kate said, Lightning Lanes in Disneyland, got to get into the park. At Disney World, it is 7 a.m. local time that you will be able to start by booking your first Lightning Lane of the day. And both instances, you're going to book those one at a time. So previous systems were different. This system is you will book one Lightning Lane at a time. Now I'll talk about some exceptions to that in a moment, because there are a couple other things that you can book at the same time, but none of them are
quid pro quos.
But none of them are just the lightning lanes. So I'm going to be very careful about my verbiage tonight because I don't want to confuse anybody, because I get it. It's a lot. So you can book your regular lightning lanes one at a time. And then just also keep in mind that you can only book one lightning lane per ride per day.
Well, I hate that.
Sorry. I know.
Sorry, I shouldn't, but I am not fond of that rule because it didn't used to. This is a significant change if you were used to fast passes. Fast passes, you could have unlimited rides on any particular ride. You would just have to get it at the fast pass intervals and wait in between. That is not the same thing with Genie Plus. Ironically, now that you pay more, you get less chances to ride, and you can only go once. So, Good times. I also want to say, Hokulani says, yes, I purchased my Genie Plus when I buy my ticket. So I don't actually buy physical Disneyland tickets very often. So thank you for confirming that. I appreciate that.
Yes, I had Dairy Free Mama over on this side also said that as well. But she did that at the beginning of June for Disneyland. So so different purchasing systems. Thank you for confirming that. So before we get into kind of the nitty gritty details, I do just want to hit, because I feel like this question is asked more than anything that I see in the lives, on content about Genie Plus, any of that, is should I use Genie Plus at every park with kids? That is a very dependent question.
Yeah.
But my answer is, it depends on, are you an early riser or not? What is the max waiting ability of your traveling party? You know, if you've got littles that can't wait longer than 10 or 15 minutes, that's going to be a huge difference between if you've got a little bit older kids that could maybe wait up to 30 minutes, gauging those types of things. And also what your ride priority list is. Making your priority list before you go on your trip is super, super, super important. And if that priority list has a ton of attractions that have long waits, that may help you sway your opinion one way or the other.
And I will say another thing that that can be dependent on is how busy the park actually is.
Yes.
For whatever park you're going to. Because I will say, like, for instance, this weekend at Disneyland, it was not busy, which was a little shocking for a weekend in June. I didn't need Genie Plus because most of the wait times for the things that I wanted to go on were like maximum 30 minutes for the busiest time of day. And I was like, I don't need to pay $25 to get this for the day. So that is kind of a rarity these days. It usually is pretty crowded in the parks in general. But I will say that is something to take into account, is how busy it actually is in the parks when you're going.
So my general rule of thumb is if you're concerned about it and you're able to budget to include that in your cost, I would do it.
Yeah.
Because I do think it is really worth it, especially if you're someone who takes the time to research about it and you have a game plan and you know what you're doing going into it. It makes me chuckle because the Disney website says general users will get 2 to 3 rides out of their Genie Plus per day. And I'm like, I get like 8 to 10 usually, depending on the park. You know, Magic Kingdom, easily I can get that many. So it really just depends, again, on all of those types of things. But my general rule of thumb is I do suggest it because I do think it can be very, very helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I would say at least budget it in for, we'll talk about specific parks and things like that later. But if it is for the parks that we recommend, I would try to budget it in at least for those, because it really will change the entire course of your day, because it's very frustrating, honestly, to get in some of these lines where they prioritize the Lightning Lane. And it's not like a regular standby line where it just moves at regular intervals. Sometimes you're just parked there forever because they're prioritizing those Lightning Lanes. So that makes it very, very frustrating to stand in those lines.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Especially if you're traveling with kiddos or with a large group and you're trying to keep moving throughout your day. So again, like I said, I would suggest
Jen says, I feel like we're not the average users, and you definitely are not the average user. That's true.
It is true. Yes, it is true. But I also feel like a little bit of research and a little bit of planning ahead with this goes a long way and can really get you more with the system. Let's talk a little bit more about the details and the intricacies of that. So let's talk about price point, because I know that is something that will heavily influence your decision on whether or not you want to utilize that. So Disney World prices, they just this week came out with a new system of pricing their parks. So now, when you go to select your Genie Plus, you are going to have kind of a split option. You're going to have the option to do a park hopper. So if you are someone that knows you're going to be hopping park to park that day, you have a park hopper option. And then you also will have an option to do each of the 4 parks individual purchase, no hopper. So when you pull up your Genie Plus, it's going to be on, there's a couple different ways you can get in to actually purchase it. I tend to just go to the tip board because that's where I'm comfortable. And so that would be where I would click. You're going to click there, and then it's going to bring up your list of options for the day, which Kate, I say, are you working on that? Yes, perfect. Thank you. Yes. These are, like I said, this is the new breakdown. So as you can see, at the very top, you have the multiple park option. That is your park hopper option. And then underneath, you see all the parks listed. The interesting thing about this system is Magic Kingdom is the most expensive park. It's been that way the past 3 days. So this has been the 3rd day today that they've done it. The park hopper option has been the same price as Magic Kingdom every day, which I just think is really interesting. Animal Kingdom has been the cheapest, followed moving up to Epcot, Hollywood Studios, and then Magic Kingdom at the top. And yes, Court, it is a little bit lower. It has been a little bit, the first day was a little bit higher. The last 2 days have been a little bit lower. This has been the price point for the last 2 days. So those are going to be your options that you're going to see whenever you click to purchase. So going into it, you're going to need to know if you plan on hopping or not, which 9 times out of 10 people are going to know what they're going to do. They're going to know whether or not hopping is on their agenda for the day, or if you're someone like me, we don't hop. So I know that I'm only going to be looking at those individual park options for whatever park I'm going to that day. Right. So after you have purchased, then that's when you get into the more complicated stuff when it comes to booking and all of that type of thing. Disneyland is kind of what the old way used to be at Disney World, where you just have that single price point. It ranges from about 25 to 30 from what I've seen, depending on the day. So their price does fluctuate based on park crowds as Disney World's does as well. So keep that in mind as well. So you're looking at 25 to 30, and that option does automatically include the park hopper.
There's a discount for Magic Key holders as well for that, which is so great.
That's nice.
I don't know why they don't have that for Disney World for annual pass holders. I will never understand that, but yeah, I was trying to look for, I was trying to pull up the one for Disneyland. Right now it's $30 per day today.
Okay.
It was $25 this weekend. So it's based on demand, I think, what they,
Yes.
well, I can't pull it up, but yeah.
Yes.
So it looks like it's $30 per day right now.
Yep. So when you go to purchase at
available
Disneyland,
like
you're not
this.
going to see all those options. You're just going to see the one option to go ahead and purchase that for the day. Something else to consider with the purchase of Genie Plus is ride photos at both coasts are included with your Genie Plus. So if you're someone that really enjoys getting those ride photos, that is included for any day that you purchase Genie Plus. If there's a day you don't purchase it though, you're not going to get those ride photos. And then I will say also at Disney World, keep in mind that if you take other PhotoPass photos, they will not be included with that. So you would have to then buy your memory maker if that is something that you wanted. So if you want pictures on Main Street, if you want pictures at the castle, if you want pictures, anywhere else outside of the rides, you still are going to need to purchase that memory maker. So
yeah, whereas in
that in mind.
Disneyland, if you purchase Genie Plus, all of your photos are included. Your ride photos, your PhotoPass photos, all your photos. So it's actually better value in a lot of ways, even though it looks like the price point is slightly higher. You get a lot more for it than you do at Disney World, which is so unfortunate. Yeah.
And I think it's important to note that because you want to get the most out of the money that you're spending, so not only doing rides, but then photos as well. If you know that your party is going to want those photos, that can be a huge time saver. So just keep that in mind as you're going through that. So that's kind of overview of the prices. Okay, so let's talk about individual Lightning Lanes. So we've been talking about regular Lightning Lanes and booking them at 7 a.m. if you're at Disney World, or booking them in the park when you're at Disneyland. Let's talk about individual Lightning Lanes. So this is part of kind of all of this big picture, but it's not under Genie Plus. So I want to stress very clearly that individual Lightning Lanes do not come with the Genie Plus purchase. So they are a separate purchase. They are what Disney calls an a la carte option. They are your fancy rides. They are your extra rides. They are whatever you want to call them. They are the ones that you have to pay for separately. So that includes at Magic Kingdom, Tron and Seven Dwarfs, at Epcot, Cosmic Rewind, at Hollywood Studios, Rise of the Resistance, at Animal Kingdom, Flight of Passage, at Disneyland, that includes Runaway Railway and Rise of the Resistance there, and at California Adventure, that includes Radiator Springs Racers.
Yeah.
All of those rides that we mentioned, you have to pay for separately.
Yes, and I have this confirmation. Did you want to show this one?
After you have purchased, your screen is going to look a little bit different. And I have screenshots of stuff that I shared so that way Kate can kind of pull up so we can see them. But I will also say screenshot everything you purchase, everything you book, screenshot it all, because the apps are very finicky. So that is what it looks like. So and the other thing that kills me is if you read the top, it says a confirmation of your Lightning Lane purchase. Can we make it say individual Lightning Lane, please? And then if you look at the bottom, Lightning Lane entry, Star Wars, Rise of the Resistance. Can you not? You're just making it more confusing.
Consistent.
I know, and it's not. It's not. So individual Lightning Lanes will range anywhere from $10 to $25 a piece, from what I've seen.
This one says $22 per guest.
Yep. So that one was not that long ago in June for Rise of the Resistance at Hollywood Studios. So $22 for that day. And those prices do fluctuate based on capacity and volume of crowds and all that. So expect that on a day that you pay more for your Genie Plus, those individual Lightning Lanes are also going to be more. The only one that I've seen really stay consistent is Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at Magic Kingdom is always $11. I don't know
That's
why
weird.
that one doesn't change. It's just always $11.
You would think it would go up because it's a popular ride. That's so
It doesn't,
interesting.
though. I know. So who knows?
I mean,
So
well, knock on wood, they don't change that.
I know.
Don't listen to this, Disney. We're okay with it.
So basically, yeah, you got to decide again. If you're already decided that you're booking Genie Plus, are you also going to book individual Lightning Lanes? Or are you a family that doesn't need Genie Plus at a certain park, but maybe can get away with only booking individual Lightning Lanes? You know, those are other things that you need to consider. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But for individual Lightning Lanes at Disney World, individual Lightning Lanes, two things you have to keep in mind when you're booking. If you are staying on property at a Disney resort or another resort on property that's included in this, aka like Swan and Dolphin, you can book your individual Lightning Lanes at 7 a.m. Just like your regular Lightning Lanes, you can also book your individual Lightning Lanes at 7 a.m. If you are not staying on property, go ahead. Did you have a question?
Would you recommend people book their individual Lightning Lane first or their Lightning Lane first?
Okay. So it depends on what you're booking.
Sure.
Let's see. So like Magic Kingdom, if you're booking Magic Kingdom, I would book your regular Lightning Lane first and then book your individual Lightning Lanes, because your regular Lightning Lane time is going to be a lot more helpful if it's an earlier time, especially at a park like Magic Kingdom that has so many rides. So book that first to get as early as the time as possible, and then go and book your individual Lightning Lanes immediately after. If you are at Animal Kingdom, it doesn't truly matter. It maybe just depends on what your plans are for the day if you're doing Flight of Passage. If you are at Epcot, again, same thing. It doesn't really make a huge difference. For Cosmic Rewind, it just depends on where you're going to be and what your plans are for the day. Hollywood Studios is another one that I would book your regular Lightning Lane first, because your regular Lightning Lane most likely is going to be something like Slinky Dog, and those times get late within an instant. So you want to book that first and then book your time for Rise of the Resistance. Most time, the individual Lightning Lanes don't immediately sell out. There's still going to be some times that are going to be available. So even if you are messing with a regular Lightning Lane and you don't book your individual Lightning Lane for another 5 minutes, it's going to be okay. Unless you're super detailed on what time you need things, that's a different story. So a little bit of both depending on your plans.
Yeah, and I would say Disneyland, it doesn't make that much of a difference because nothing goes super, super, super fast at Disneyland like it does at Disney World. Mm-hmm. Like things at Disney World will just, if you're not on it, it's gone. But Disneyland, even like the most popular ones, you can still get till mid-morning to even early afternoon. So it's not as critical.
Yep. So those individual Lightning Lanes, again, if you are on property at Disney World, 7 a.m. If you are off property at Disney World, you're not staying at a Disney resort, you will book those at park open. So whatever park you're going to first, that is the time that you will go by to be able to book your individual Lightning Lanes.
No, you don't have to be in the parks, right?
You do not have to be in the park.
Just when the park physically opens.
It will just open up and become available to you on the app whenever that time hits. So again, these are the individual Lightning Lanes. Jess, you were asking the difference. The individual Lightning Lanes are the ones that we are talking about now, those extra kind of top tier rides that are separate from the rides that you purchase through Genie Plus. For Disneyland, doing your individual Lightning Lanes is you can book them when you enter the park.
Yeah, like everything else. It's like you can't book anything until you enter the park. Even if you're a hotel guest, there's no difference for that.
Yep. So again, Disney World, you're going to wake up early and frantically book everything. And Disneyland, you're going to frantically book it as soon as you walk inside the tap style.
There's a lot of frantically booking at Disney World more than Disneyland. Like sometimes I've like forgotten to even buy my Genie Plus till I'm like halfway down Main Street. I was like, oh right, I have to do that, right?
Do that. Right. So much different. So much different.
It is very different culture.
The other thing to consider, and this is really especially critical if you are park hopping, and depending on what rides are on your list, the system will only allow you to purchase 2 individual Lightning Lanes per day. So even if you're planning on on going to, like at Disney World, so let's say you're going to 3 different parks and you want those rides, you can only purchase 2 for the day. The same thing happens at Disneyland. You can only purchase 2 individual Lightning Lanes per day. So plan that accordingly.
And they can't be the same ride. They can have to be different rides.
Yes.
So you can't go on Rise twice with individual Lightning Lanes. You can go once, and then you gotta wait for the other one.
Or not. Because those lines are so long. The annoying thing that I feel like with this is like we've added Cosmic Rewind and Tron at Disney World and they haven't upped that number. You know what I mean? It's always been 2 and we've added more rides and now it's frustrating.
You would think they would add a third one. They're just going to make more money. Like,
right.
Why wouldn't
like
they
people
add a
would
third?
buy it. Because you've got to think like if let's say you're starting at Animal Kingdom and then hopping to Magic Kingdom, you cannot purchase Flight of Passage, Seven Dwarfs, and Tron. You have to pick and
that's
choose,
crazy.
which is fine. But again,
there's a lot of things
we
could change if we could.
Yes.
Besides the fact that it costs money. Besides that, just a lot of little things.
Yes. So the other thing that I will mention with this is something that MacGyver just asked on here. My biggest suggestion is if you are booking both individual Lightning Lanes and regular Lightning Lanes through Genie Plus is 2 people. You can be logged into the same account or 2 devices. Let's say you're solo and you have an iPad and a phone. That's what I do whenever I'm solo or whenever I'm helping people book. Like I get both of them out so that way I have the ability to use both. You can be logged into the same account. So I know that that's a question a lot of people have. When my family goes, my husband and I are always logged into the same account and we'll divide and conquer if we need to. And I'll tell him, okay, you book this, I'm going to book this. And then at 7 a.m. we do our thing and we get that done. You can be in different accounts as well, as long as everybody is linked together that you're needing to book for. You can do it from different accounts as well. But I highly suggest using 2 people or 2 devices in the mornings when you book if you're doing both Lightning Lanes and individual Lightning Lanes. And then also, we can throw in the virtual queues too.
But wait, there's more.
More options. So you also have the ability to book virtual queues. And again, I know this is not directly Genie Plus, but it's so important when you're looking at Genie Plus and Lightning Lanes to also take these into consideration as well. So we have virtual queues. So Disneyland is what Kate is showing there right now. And at Disneyland, there is their standard virtual queue that they have right now is for World of Color. Now, if you are wanting to there's another virtual queue that is just going to be temporary in Disneyland, which is the Rogers the Musical virtual queue, which I didn't have there's nothing on the app about it yet. So I was looking for screenshots of it and I was like, I got nothing. So that is going to be, a new one that they're going to run, because if you don't know what Rogers the Musical is, it is just a temporary show that they're doing in Disneyland. They are doing a virtual queue for entrance to that show.
Yeah, and so Blanca in here says, I never understood virtual queue. I've never used it. Here's the thing about virtual queue. And we'll go over the Disney World ones too, because these are really important for these rides. It's very important that you understand how to use these if you're going to the Disney parks, because you will miss out on essentially a free almost Lightning Lane ish. You still have to wait for these, but it's almost like getting a free individual lightning lane for a really big ride. So you don't want to sleep on the virtual queues. You need to understand them. Do your research ahead of time. Listen to this podcast episode again if you need to, but know when the time starts, where you need to be, and what to do, because they work the same at Disneyland as they do in Disney World. So they have the same procedure. And essentially you will go into your app, even on the homepage, it'll say join virtual queue at some place in that. You'll head over there, you'll choose your party for who's going with you. And then the steps that I recommend for people to make sure they have it, be there, get yourself ready at least like 5 minutes before this opens. Like, get yourself in your game. This is like a
get your head in the game.
Get your head in the game. Get ready. Get like emotionally ready, because it's a little stressful. And as soon as the clock ticks over, I usually watch on another device, time.gov, to help me know. But I just start tapping that button like at 59 before it turns over, like a minute before it turns over. I start tapping that button, and it'll refresh and refresh and refresh and refresh. And then that way you're tapping, and as soon as the button turns blue, you're still tapping. You hit the blue button, you hit confirm, and then you're in. Okay, so the most important thing is make sure you have your party all set up before that time comes, and then start hitting that button. The other critical piece of it is make sure that your internet is good. So you can do something called test. It's Google speed test. It will pop up. You can hit a button. It will test the internet speed. If yours is less than, I usually try to get to 100 or more. If it's less than that, try to see if you can walk around to a different area. Away from people is also helpful. Just to try to get a better signal. You can switch between Wi-Fi and your cell phone signal. Sometimes Wi-Fi will be stronger. Sometimes your cell phone, often your cell phone signal is stronger than Wi-Fi on Disney property in general.
Yep.
But make sure your speed is good. Make sure you're on time. Make sure your party is chosen, and then you will get that lightning lane easy peasy. I get it every single time. I don't think I've ever missed it using that method. So make sure that you do those things, but make sure you do your research and know how to use the virtual queues, because they are worth it. So
yep, and that's the exact same process that I use whenever I do it. And the only time I've ever missed it is when like the app had a wonky glitch, and like there was nothing I could do about it. But I will just mention that the virtual queue is, like Kate said, it holds your place in line. So you will get a group number, which I think we have a couple virtual queue examples in those photos that I put up there, Kate. So you will get a group number. And the group numbers are assigned basically at random. Basically, how fast can you click in? Now, for Disney World, 2 rides that you have, Tron and Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. So those are your 2 virtual queues. And essentially, like Kate said, it's a free way to be able to ride the ride. These rides don't have a standby line. You don't have the ability to stand in line and wait for them. So if you want to ride them and you don't want to pay, the virtual queue is your in to be able to do that. So after you get your virtual queue, you'll see right there that it says your group number. For Cosmic Rewind, it will show you an estimated wait. So that was like first thing, and it said group 17 was 220 minutes. That wait time is from the moment that you're looking at it. So 220 minutes from 7 a.m. was their estimated callback time. Once your group is called, you then have an hour window that you're supposed to return. I will say with Cosmic Rewind only, they are very forgiving. Now with Tron, completely the opposite.
Yes.
You have to be there within that hour window. So like this one that I got for a group was group 6. That's going to get called.
Look at you at group 6. That's a flex.
That one is going to get called. Anything like groups 1 through about 20 is going to be called within the first hour of the park being open. So that is something to really, with Tron, to pay attention to, because if you're like, oh, we'll grab a virtual queue, you need to get to the park if you have a low group number, because otherwise you're going to miss out on your chance to be able to ride. Because you're typically going to have anywhere from, like, the park has been opening around 9 o'clock. You're going to have Sometimes they've even been calling them early. So they've started calling it like 8:45 to 9:45 is their first groups that they call. So just keep that in mind. If you get a low group number for Tron, you better get your behinds in gear and get on that bus or whatever to get to the park so you don't miss out on your chance.
If you do miss it, though, if you don't check in the morning with the morning group, you can actually try again at the
Hopefully
1 p.m. drop. Well, I
Hopefully.
have done it most
And
of the
I
time.
have had
I've
it
done it
not
twice.
and I have had it not let me do it as well. So I've been
that's
booking.
crazy.
Yeah, I've been booking for a family before, and they missed their early time because they were at a dining reservation. And I said, okay, no problem. I'll grab you the 1 p.m. It wouldn't let me.
They didn't let
So
you. Oh, that's
fingers
so crazy.
crossed it should, and that was the only
should.
time it's ever not let me.
Yeah, it's let me twice now. If I missed it, but usually just
part
don't
of
miss
me
it.
wonders, yeah. Part of me wonders if because that one was their time ended very close to the 1 p.m. drop, that I wonder if that was part of the reason why.
Yeah, that could be.
So it could have just been an odd situation. Luckily, they had a cast member that was very kind and still let them go, even though they were about 15 minutes after their window. So they got very lucky because that is not the norm. That is not the norm. So yeah, keep that in mind. If you are someone that, my suggestion with Tron is if you are someone that has like a breakfast reservation, don't do the 7 a.m. Just don't even, because don't stress yourself out with it. Just do the 1 p.m. and do everything that Kate mentioned earlier with finding a good spot with signal and all of that.
Which we recommend. If you're in Magic Kingdom, in front of Little Mermaid has really good cell service.
Yes, it does, for whatever reason.
Little Mom Street hack. So go to Little Mermaid and use your speed test and find a good spot.
Yeah.
We have a little magical stone we like to stand on to do it.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. Yes.
So
I did have a question.
Tron gets complicated. Long story short, it gets complicated.
I do have a question from Nikki asking, do we think that Disney will expand virtual queues for other rides in the future? My answer to that is, well, they have used it to not only rides, they've also used it for things like merchandising and whatnot. So I do think they're starting to experiment with like other ways they can use a virtual queue and to help. I don't think that they would extend it to already established rides, only because they would be losing money because they use those individual lightning lanes for those ones. So I don't see them doing that personally, but anything's possible. But I doubt it. I would say they might use it for other things, shows and stuff like that. I could see that happening, but probably not for established rides.
Yeah, like for example, when Tiana's Bayou Adventure opens, it's going to be a virtual queue. Just prepare yourself for that.
Because they're going to have like a 6-hour queue otherwise, and they want to avoid that because it's not good PR for them to have a 6-hour queue.
No, it's got to be a quick moving line, and I got to ride it, and it was awesome, and go tell all your friends how good it was, all of that. Tiana's will be, any of those new big rides that they come out with, they're most likely going to be virtual queues even to start. And then Disney is also good at, like, for example, when Disney opened in Disneyland, when they opened their version of Runaway Railway, it was a virtual queue at first, but then they switched it to have a standby line, within 2 weeks of it opening, because the need from what Disney saw, I'm not saying from what I saw, from what Disney saw, the need to have that virtual queue was not there. So they did away with the virtual queue and went to a standby and individual lightning lane situation. So it really just depends, but I do think that pretty much every ride from here on out that they open is going to start with a virtual queue, at least at first.
Yeah, that's what I believe too.
So someone was asking about if you're park hopping, what if you only want to book rides at your second park? Do you have to buy the park hopper option? And I'll be honest, Court, I don't know for certain because I haven't done it. But my guess
feel like
would
you probably would.
I truly don't know, because you do have the ability. You do have the ability to book for your second park fairly early in the morning. So I don't know because, for example, like if you're hopping to Magic Kingdom, you might as well book the park hopper option because Magic Kingdom and the park hopper option are the same price. So you might as well do a ride or two in the morning wherever you start if you're going to Magic Kingdom. But if you're going somewhere else, I really don't know. Let me see what I can find out for you, Court, and I will post in Discord because, like I said, this is only the third day that they're using this system, and I haven't even used it yet. I haven't booked for anyone this week, so I don't have firsthand knowledge to know for sure. So if anyone out here does know, please put it in the chat, but I don't know for sure. I don't think it would let you buy, because your park reservation is going to be at a certain park. I don't know that it would let you buy a different singular park Genie Plus.
I think you have. I think it would have to be for either
park.
the one you start at, or the multi-day. But if you have a park hopper, probably more towards the multi-day.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure, but again, because it's such a new system.
This should be intuitive. It's like, here's what you buy if you have this.
Yes, basically.
You can tell how much I love Genie Plus.
Yeah, and Allie, that's a good question. She asked, how will this work once reservations change? Because I know that Disney World is shifting to like day tickets that don't need reservations. Those, I don't think it would be a big deal because, Allie, those dated tickets are almost always base tickets and not hoppers. So those ones that they say are already pre-dated that you don't have to do the reservation for, I am almost certain that like all of those are going to be your base tickets. So it won't be an issue with the hopper versus non-hopper. I could be wrong, again, because it's all very new. But that was my understanding of the way that they were utilizing those reservation days. Now, in the future, if Disney decides to just completely shake up the reservation system, who knows? Who knows? Let's not go there.
Let's just deal with what they have right now. We'll go there when we go there. We'll do an update episode later.
Exactly. So quick recap of what we've chatted about so far. We've talked about Genie Plus with the regular Lightning Lanes. We've talked about individual Lightning Lanes, which are those extra a la carte fancy rides. And we've talked about the virtual queues. So all of that is something that you have to consider when you're planning each day when you go to the parks. It sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. But those are all the things that you need to take into account. Those types of strategies, Kate and I will be discussing in future episodes. So I know that that's a huge question too about what do I book when and how do I get through the day at the park. We are going to do 2 full episodes and talk about all 6 of the American parks and give you guys strategies for those. So we are not going to hit that tonight just because we still have a lot more to get through. And we want to give it,
we're doing the basics.
And we want to give you guys time to ask questions too that we can answer for you. And we can do a little bit of that in the Q&A, but we are going to go into depth about like park strategy in a few weeks. So just stay tuned for that. Okay, so a couple things when it comes to Genie Plus and Lightning Lanes. So again, when you book a Lightning Lane, it's going to give you an hour return window that you're able to utilize. From there, you can kind of plan your routes and things like that. Now, if you get a time that doesn't work for you, let's say you're going to be at a dining reservation, or can I
pause you for just a second? Tell me when you want me to pull up what, because otherwise I don't know where you're going. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know what to do.
If you want to pull up the ones that say tip board on them, either one of those would be perfect. So yes, it will give you an hour return window. Yep. So there's an example for this day. They had 2 booked because of stacking, and that's a whole nother thing that I'm not going to talk about right this moment. But they had both Big Thunder Mountain and Buzz booked. So let's say, for example, you know that those times won't work for you because you've got a dining reservation at 6:30 and you know that that's not going to work. You can modify your regular Lightning Lanes. I'm not talking individual lanes, I'm not talking virtual, talking regular Genie plus Lightning Lanes. You can modify those from your tip board. So those three dots that are in the top corner of where it's green is where you're going to click. From there, it will give you the a menu that you will click modify on, and you will be able to see what times are available. Now, I will caution you because modifying is not always going to be available. And unfortunately, I didn't have any screenshots of modifying because I'm usually doing it so fast that I don't think to stop and take a screenshot of it. But if you need to see modifying on my TikTok page, on my Wishes Mama page, I have a ton of Genie Plus videos that I've posted over the last couple weeks. And I have several on how to modify and how to get times to pop up and all of that kind of thing. So modifying can be super helpful. You're going to be more likely to be able to modify rides that have a lower weight or maybe aren't quite as popular than you are some of the big ticket rides. So if you get a Slinky Dog time that doesn't work, you might just be stuck with it. That's just kind of the way that it works with some of those more big ticket rides. But modifying is super, super helpful in that instance. And that is a relatively new feature of Genie Plus that not a lot of people, I think, know how to utilize. Previously, you had to completely cancel and rebook, which was a nightmare. This is a much better system. And you can use that to modify time. You can also use that to modify to a different ride in the same park. So let's say you booked a Big Thunder Mountain and you decided, oh, we're not going to be on that side of the park at that time. I'm going to switch it to Space Mountain instead. You can do that because you're in the same park. But be careful if you're hopping, you cannot modify a ride you booked in one park to a ride in a different park. It will not let you. You have to be within the same park when you're modifying. I've got a question here.
I was just saying, for example, I booked a ride. I feel like I did Indiana Jones, but I was on my live and I was not ready to go on that ride yet. And so I went in and I modified it, and I just picked a later return time because it allowed me to just get a couple hours later, and that worked perfectly for me so that I didn't have to go right then because I just wasn't ready to go, which I appreciate that flexibility when you have it for rides that are not gone for the day, that's always really helpful.
Yeah. So Dairy Free Mama asked a really good question about the 2-hour window. So let's talk about what that means. So with your Lightning Lanes, this is the crucial part that I feel like not a lot of people realize. And this is where people get burnt and they don't get enough from their Genie Plus. 2 different ways that you will be allowed to book your next attraction. The first is if you physically tap into that attraction, then you will be able to immediately book your next one. The second part is there is a 2-hour window guide that you will use. For example, let's say you book a Slinky Dog, but you don't get a time until 11 a.m. Okay. Oh, well, actually, let's go a little later. Let's go 12. Okay. So you book a Slinky Dog in your 7 a.m. booking. You book a 12 o'clock time for Slinky Dog. You will see at the top of your tip board, which unfortunately, again, I don't have screenshots of everything. I'm sorry. At the top of your tip board, you will see it will tell you when you can book next. It will not make you wait to tap in. It will give you what they call the 2-hour rule. So 2 hours after park open, you will be able to book your next ride. So keep that in mind. So let's say 2 hours after park open, you book a Toy Story Mania. Then that would be, then you would have 2 rides at a time. So that's kind of like mini stacking throughout the day where you have more than 1 ride at a time. Something to keep in mind with that is whatever ride you booked most recently is going to be what that window is going to base on. So if you had that noon Slinky, but you got an 11:30 Toy Story Mania, your booking window is going to be judged on that Toy Story Mania because it was a more recent booking for you. So it gets a little finicky when it comes to that, and you really have to pay attention to what that top of your tip board is. Luckily, they added that. For the longest time,
I know
that wasn't there.
Like, who knew? You just had to,
Nobody
you had to go
knew.
try to book it,
You
and
had
then
to
it would
try
tell
to book something.
Yeah, and then it was like, oh, you can't do it until this time. So thankfully, they figured that out. That hey, people want to know this information about when they can book next, and put it on there.
Yes, so you
That's great.
don't always have to tap into the ride to be able to book your next ride. So that is something that is really crucial, especially if you are not early risers and you know you're going to want to do all your times later. Keep that in mind. So what
Except
you
for
would,
if you're at Disneyland, you have to get into the park before you can book. So
we're not
you
talking
just are-
Disneyland yet.
like, it doesn't
We're not
apply for
talking-
Disneyland. You
Yeah.
got to get
Yeah.
into the park
So-
or you can't book anything.
So then, let me continue the scenario that we're working with right now. So you've got an 11:30 Toy Story Mania and a noon time for Slinky Dog. Once you tap in for your Toy Story Mania time, you will be eligible to book for another ride because it was the most recent ride you booked. So that's where, like, when I help people and I'm booking for them, I will manipulate and I will tell them, go here first because then I can book you something else. If you've got times that are close together or overlapping, always go to the most recently booked time or attraction first, so that way you can book your next ride. So you would be able to tap in for Toy Story Mania, book your next ride Toy Story Mania, and then go tap in for Slinky Dog, ride that, and then go to whatever your next ride was. So that's where it gets a little complicated. Most of the time, if you're fast and you're on it and you have a plan, your ride time will be before that 2-hour window runs out. So just keep an eye on that to make sure that you know when you're going to be eligible to book next. That's, like I said, biggest thing that I tell people.
I have a question from Nikki. Is there some sort of restriction in booking if you're not staying on Disney property? So what's the restriction there?
Not for the regular Lightning Lanes. That is all the same for regardless of where you are. The only
So you could like stack your
difference-
afternoon Lightning Lanes from off property if you wanted to.
Yep. Because I have people that I know that maybe are using Genie Plus but aren't, like, they don't land until noon and they're not going to be in the parks until 2 p.m. They don't need those early times. They want 2 p.m. to close times. So that's where stacking comes into play. And basically what stacking is you're manipulating those times to be stacked on top of each other at a later point in the day. So like I said, let's say your flight doesn't land until noon. You know you're not going to be in the parks super early in the morning, but you still want to be up at 7 using that modify to push your time later. The big thing that I will say, the big thing that I will say with modifying is you have to make sure when you're modifying, you modify it before your window runs out. So let's use that example again, that your flight doesn't land until noon. You're not going to be in the parks until 2. Let's say you're going to Epcot. At 7 a.m., let's say you book Ratatouille, and it's a 10 a.m. return time. Well, that's obviously not going to work with what your plans are for the day. So you're going to use that modify to continually check it and push it later in the day. You're going to be eligible then if you've got a late time. Let's say you get like a 6 o'clock time. Perfect. You're already going to be in the parks, good to go. You're going to be eligible for your next booking 2 hours after park open. So Epcot usually opens at 9 a.m. So 11 a.m. you're going to be eligible to book your next ride. So let's say you book a Frozen for 7 o'clock. Perfect. You don't even have to mess with that one. Then 2 hours after that, you're going to be eligible to book your next one. So 1 p.m. you're going to be eligible to book a third ride. Now that ride, let's say you're going to be in the parks at 2. That ride, whatever it is, you want to book it as close to 2 as you possibly can. Because as soon as you tap into that one, then you'll be able to go through and get your other ones done. Does that make sense?
I don't even think. Yeah, there's a lot of people over here being like, this makes my head hurt. And I am 100% on board with you. Like, literally, I'm learning things and I use this all the time. I'm literally learning. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was the one you booked, the most recent that is the one. I'm like, how did I not know that? Well, I didn't know that because this is ridiculously complicated.
Yeah, it is. So Court asked a good
Thanks
question.
for that, Jackie.
Yeah, she said, so you'd want to book your latest first, then book backwards. You can. you might not be able to, depending on what ride you're booking and what time you get and all of that. But that would be my suggestion, is to push your rides later and kind of stack your way backwards if you can. Because like I said, you're going to want to try your best when you get into the parks to go to your most recently booked attraction first, to be able to continue to book for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll go over individual park strategies because it really does depend on what park you're in. It's very hard to give kind of a general answer because of that. I mean, what I tend to do though is I tend to book the things that go the fastest during the day, or some of the things I book first, especially if I'm rope dropping, because I know I can rope drop and just walk on almost a couple of rides in the morning. So I'm booking things thinking out what is going to disappear from the availability first. It's a general rule, but it's more nuanced than that, but that's kind of the Cliff Notes version of how I handle that.
And that is some of the stuff that, like I mentioned, I know you guys have those questions, but we just don't have time to get into every single park strategy tonight. But that is the type of stuff that we will be talking about in a few weeks whenever we get to those topics for you guys. So stick with us, and we will get you guys that information very, very soon. If you happen to have a trip between now and then, send us a message and we will help you. If you need it a little more immediate than that, let us know and we can get you what you need. Okay, so a couple other things that I have to chat about with you guys, and then we will open it up for any other questions you guys have or that you may be thinking of as we go. So the one thing that I want to mention next is there are a couple things that I will never use Genie Plus for. And this is my opinion from all of my experience. I will not use Genie Plus for shows. So think about the shows that they have. It is available. I would not use it. It's just not worth it.
Neither would I.
Previously, I would have used it when you couldn't modify, but now that you can modify, there's absolutely no reason to. Because I would have used it to be a filler in between rides that I needed for certain timing and things like that. I would manipulate the system that way, but there's no need to do that because you can modify. So shows, it's just not worth it. Rides that have almost a consistently less than 20-minute wait, I wouldn't use it for. So again, do your research, look at those rides. Those rides are most likely going to be a little bit lower on your list possibly anyway. So those types of things. And also parade viewing areas, I would not use it for that if I were you, unless there's a very specific reason why you need it. If you're looking at just wanting a guaranteed spot because you've got, maybe you're traveling with grandparents that need a spot to be able to see, or you're traveling with littles that need, there are certain situations where parades I'm okay with, especially if you've got more than one day in Magic Kingdom. But 9 times out of 10, I would not use it for a parade.
I could see that if you're like someone who really doesn't want to wait for a parade ever. Like my husband falls in that category of, he's like, I don't want to wait for fireworks or parade like ever in my entire life. And I understand. So that way, but that in that case, it might be worth it for him, but I still probably wouldn't do it. I just make him wait.
Yeah, so your Genie Plus viewing area for the Festival of Fantasy Parade is around the inside of the hub. So think about the sidewalk areas kind of closest to like the partner statue in there. That kind of area, kind of from the castle around part of that is your Genie Plus viewing area. It's a great spot to see. It's very hot because you're out in the middle of the sun out there.
It's true.
But it does have a good vantage point because you're looking kind of towards the castle as the parade comes by, which is nice. But I would much rather stay around the outside of that hub area, kind of back towards where there are a few trees in that space.
Me too. In the shade, I would prefer that too. Yeah.
So overall, I just don't think it's worth booking. I think there are so many other things in Magic Kingdom that you could be using your Genie Plus for. Especially because, like I said, especially with that ability to modify, if you get a time that's during the parade and you're going to be watching the noon parade, just modify it for a little bit later and then go to it right after you're done. Much easier to do that than to try to do the parade and then book something else and all of that. So
that makes sense.
Those are my suggestions for things to never use Genie Plus for. And then The other thing that I will just chat briefly about, Allie Beth asked about it earlier, is utilizing DAS with Genie Plus. So for those of you who don't know what DAS is, it is the Disability Access Service Pass. So DAS works in a nutshell in a similar manner to Genie Plus, where you book a return window and it gives you, a time for you to return. And then once you tap in, you can book the next one, for a very basic version of how it works. My advice, if you're going to be using both DAS and Genie Plus, would be to use DAS to your advantage because, you qualify for it, you should use it, to get some of the longest lines done and to get any of the individual lightning lanes that you want to do done with your DAS, and then use Genie Plus to do your other filler rides. So the way that DAS works is you can book some stuff ahead of time as well. So that can also help offset or help you be able to do things twice if you qualify for that, because you could do it once through your DAS and then again through your Genie Plus if you're purchasing that. But then you can also try to use your times kind of back and forth, which when I have booked for clients previously that have DAS and are using Genie Plus, that's what I try to do. So I try to kind of put the DAS rides in between where I have put the Genie Plus rides. So that way it's really nice that they can just kind of seamlessly go from one to the next. And it can save you a little bit because you're not going to have to pay for individual lightning lanes for some of the rides. That won't work with all of the rides, but any ride that has a standby, you would be able to book a return time for.
So basically, if you want to use, you don't have to get Genie Plus if you have DAS because you can include your family members in your party, but it will allow you some extra rides, some more flexibility, those kinds of things. So yeah, that's what I would say about it.
I will also mention that we discussed the DAS system and kind of how it works a little bit more. And I wrote it down, episode 25 of our podcast. So if you're looking for more information on accessibility, disability access, those types of things, check out that episode on our YouTube and our podcast, because we went in depth about kind of how all of that works in the parks. So that's my little snippet about using DAS and Genie Plus.
We didn't talk about what happens when a ride goes down during return time.
I skipped that. I'm sorry. I jumped around and then I confused myself.
How could you?
Okay, I know. Okay, yes, thank you, Kate. Okay, so one of the frequent questions that I also get is, what happens if a ride goes down? Because that does happen frequently at Disney, where rides will go down due to, if it's a mechanical issue, if it's a weather-related issue, whatever that may be.
It's people throwing ash on the Haunted Mansion.
Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Don't do it. Were you there? I don't think you were there when somebody told me the story about how somebody actually they were a cast member, I think, and they said in the Haunted Mansion, and somebody tried to scatter ashes in the ballroom. And the ballroom, for people who don't know, is a giant pane of glass in front of you that creates the Pepper's ghost effect. So they threw it at the glass. And it bounced off the glass and went all over everybody that was in that area.
Oh no, that is like a massive OSHA violation. No.
There's so many things that are awful about that.
Yeah.
So don't do that.
Don't do it. Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
So that's not usually why Haunted Mansion goes down, but
various reasons why a ride may go down. Hopefully not that. Hopefully it's a simple mechanical issue that just needs a quick repair. Anyway, if it does go down for whatever reason, you will receive on your app what they call a multi-experience pass. You will get a notification about it on your device. And then you will be able to go in and see on your My Day tab. So when you open the tip board, there's two tabs. There's the tip board and then there's the one that says My Day. On your My Day tab, it's going to show you this pass. when you click on the pass, it's going to give you the ability to, it's going to show you what rides you have the ability to use it for. So two ways that you can use a pass like this if you get it. One, you can save it for the ride that you intended it for. Or two, you can use it for a different ride in that category. So it's going to give you a whole big long list of rides that are eligible based on what you booked. So like at Magic Kingdom, if you book something like Winnie the Pooh, it's going to give you a bigger list of rides. If you book something like Jungle Cruise, it's a little bit higher of a tier, and it's going to give you a little bit of different options based on that. So it is somewhat based on what ride went down and what ride you had booked. The other thing that I will mention is that as soon as you get that notification, if that's the next ride that you're supposed to be going on, if that's the most recently booked one, you will immediately become available to book your next ride, regardless of what time it is, regardless of what your tip board initially said. If a ride goes down, and you get one of those passes, you will immediately become available to book your next ride. The other thing that I also encourage people...
not the multi-experience pass? Like another one?
Correct. So let's say you booked the Pooh at 3 to 4 o'clock time, and at 3:05, hold on. You booked it for a 3 to 4 o'clock time. Your tip board says you're next eligible to book at 4 p.m. because that's what it would say, because that's the end of your window. But at 3:05, you haven't gone on Winnie the Pooh yet, and it goes down. It's going to kick you that multi-experience pass, and then you're going to immediately become eligible to book your next ride. You do not have to wait until 4 o'clock. Sorry.
Because you can't tap in.
Yes. There's nothing you can do about it. Yes. So
right.
In that instance, what I typically suggest to people is, hey, if it's a ride that like I know that they really, really wanted to do, hey, save that multi-experience pass. Let's book something different. And I can later book you a second ride on that same attraction. Because if you get a multi-experience pass for an attraction, you are still eligible to book it again. So that is the only loophole in the you can only book rides once, is if it goes down and you get that multi-experience pass. Because Disney can't guarantee what ride you're going on with it, so they make it so you're eligible to book again. So if it was Pooh and it goes down and it's my daughter's favorite ride, I'm going to hold on to that multi-experience pass. I'm going to book something different. And then when Pooh comes back, after let's say I ride 2 more rides, I book another Pooh, then I can go on it back to back, because the multi-experience pass will allow me entrance to it. And then the time that I booked on Genie Plus will allow me entrance to it. Yeah, so that's like I said, that's really the only loophole in being able to book it, being able to book rides just once. Now, you don't have to do that.
I sometimes celebrate when I get those passes, because you get so much more flexibility. You're like,
yes.
Woohoo, I get to like decide what I want to do now.
Yeah. Another instance would be you could go back and ride something you've already ridden with Genie Plus. So let's say I rode Haunted Mansion earlier in the day with Genie Plus, and then I got a multi-experience pass, and Haunted Mansion is listed as an eligible ride. I can then take that multi-experience pass and go ride Haunted Mansion again. So again, that multi-experience pass is your key to being able to ride things more than once if that happens to you. You can't predict it. It is what it is. Some rides go down more often than others, and you can kind of, if you work the system a little, you might be able to figure that out, but there's only so much that you can predict when it comes to that.
It used to be when you saw a ride go down, you could potentially try to book that, and then it will like within an hour, usually like sometimes it'll kick you in a multi-experience pass. Like I've done that in the past. It seems like they're kind of cracking down on that now, where they won't let you book when it's down.
The app doesn't like to let you modify rides that are down. So like I've had this happen with Pirates before, where Pirates went down. I went and booked it, but I couldn't get a time close enough that it really mattered, because I knew that Pirates was going to come up within, an hour, and I got a time that was like an hour and a half out. Do you know what I mean? So, but then I have found that as soon as it goes back up, you can book like an immediate time. So the system has kind of tweaked that a little bit to where you can't do that as often, because I've tried. Not going to lie, I've tried.
Yeah, yeah. Alexander says Pirates lately almost always guarantees me a multi-experience pass every time. So
Yes, Pirates
it really
especially,
depends.
especially within the first 2 hours of park open, for whatever reason at Disney, at Magic Kingdom, at Disney World, Pirates has been having issues in the morning and it goes down. So,
It's like Rise; it needs time to warm up. Like especially
right.
pirates. They're
Yeah.
old pirates. They've been around
Yes.
since 1971 in Magic Kingdom. So
Yes.
just give them a little time to warm up.
Now, if it is an individual Lightning Lane track goes down, so we're talking the separate paid Lightning Lane attractions that go down, that pass does not become a multi-experience pass. It only becomes a pass that is good for any time throughout the day. So speaking of Rise, Rise frequently goes down. If it goes down and you get a pass for it, you will see that it will say, I can't remember the exact verbiage, but it will say like pass for Rise of the Resistance, good anytime after, and it will give you like the immediate time what it is right now. So basically, as soon as the ride comes up and anytime that it's up throughout the day, you would be able to go on that. Now, I will also mention that if, for example, your rise time is 7 to 8 in the evening, let's say, and rise goes down at 6:30 and doesn't come up the rest of the day, go see guest services because they will refund you your individual Lightning Lane.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Do not think,
don't.
no, go to guest services. You may have to wait in line because you're probably with several other people that are in that same boat. But go see guest services because they will refund you your money for your individual Lightning Lane because you couldn't ride it. There was nothing that you could do.
Yeah, I think even if you, correct me if I'm wrong, but even if that happens, if it goes down and you are like planning to hop to another park and you know you're not going to be back, you can always go try to talk to guest services and be like, this is down. We're not coming back. We need to leave because we've got reservations or we have other plans and we need to get there. And usually they will help you refund it. I can't imagine a scenario where they wouldn't when the ride goes down. That's only if the ride comes down, not if you're just like, I don't feel like using this. You know, that's a different scenario.
Right. I will say that I have also been able to get a refund on an individual Lightning Lane that my daughter decided she was too scared to ride. So we bought her a pass for Rise. She decided she was too scared. We went to guest services. They were able to refund us just her amount because the rest of us went and rode and we did rider swap and it was fine. But so that just keep that in mind as well. If you purchase something in the morning and then by the time it comes to it, your little kiddo is like terrified, it'll be okay. There are ways to just go talk to guest services. They'll be able to help you with that.
And always be very kind to the cast members and be polite and don't demand things. Always use your please and thank yous, friends. We want to be as kind as possible and also be understanding if there's something they can't do because sometimes that does happen. So
then I will also mention with virtual queues, if the ride goes down, Cosmic Rewind, they're very flexible on that type of thing. I will be honest with you, I haven't seen Tron doesn't go down very often, knock on wood.
No. I know.
So I don't know that there have been very many instances where like it's been down during an entire window of your virtual queue. But if that were to happen, again, just go talk to guest services and say, hey, our group got called. But 9 times out of 10, if it's down, they're going to stop calling groups because they have the ability to manipulate that system. So if the ride goes down, they're going to immediately stop calling groups to get in line. And then once the ride comes back up, they're going to pick up calling them again. So again, virtual queues, not as likely. But if something like that were to happen, again, just go talk to your cast members at the guest services. They are there to help you and they are lovely human beings. And we appreciate them.
Yes, for sure. 100%.
Yes.
And they don't have an easy job because there's a lot of people that don't understand any of this. And I think they understand why people don't understand any of this. But at the same time, like it's out of their hands, whether or not like people have done their research or not. That's, they can only help them so much. I feel really bad for them because like if you're not doing any research and you're just like, I just want to go to Disney and go have fun. You might end up having to pay a lot to have some of that fun. And that's the way it goes, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so
It is complicated. I agree.
I think I have covered the basics to the best of my ability. So if you guys have questions that we didn't answer or that we maybe missed or additional questions, now is the time to ask them, because I want to make sure that, again, I get how complicated all of this Genie Plus is. And the only reason that I know all of this is because I just do it so frequently, that I have learned a lot in my time, because I don't gatekeep anything that I learn on Genie Plus. Like, I want you guys to know how to do it, and I want you guys to have that knowledge to be able to utilize it for your trips. So
Nikki says, can you explain all of Genie Plus again? Just kidding.
Yes, when you replay this episode after we post it in a couple of days.
Melinda's asking for a picture chart or something to understand it easier. So I think you might be working on something like that.
In our bio, that's what I did. I remember now. Our good friend Kirk at Walrus Carp, on his website, there is a Genie Plus guide that I actually created with the help of him. And that link is in the Mom Street bio over here. It is an overview of everything that we've talked about. I do need to go and update it with a few things because of the new pricing system, but that will auto update once you get to that website. So if you go to his website, thank you, Kate, it is on there. And again, that is going to be your good overview of everything that we kind of talked about. So maybe that will help you, Melinda. If you still have additional questions, which is very likely because it's super complex and complicated, reach out to us on Discord and we can help you out with that. Okay. Oh, Court says a friend got their individual Lightning Lane refunded for Cosmic. They rode via virtual queue, got sick, and didn't want to ride again. Yeah, that makes sense, Court, that they would do that. Ryan over on my side is asking if I am a travel agent. So I am not a travel agent, but I am what I consider a travel consultant. So I do not book trips, but I do help with itineraries and Genie Plus strategy and booking Genie Plus and all of that.
Do you want to explain what these are?
Yes. So these are the trip planners that I utilize whenever I go to the parks, and they are available on my Etsy shop. So basically this is what I do whenever I go to book, make my priority list. I look at what individual Lightning Lanes I might be buying, and then I do my Genie Plus priority rides. So those are going to be like my top 3 to 4 rides that I'm going to book at that park for that day. And then underneath that, I have what ride I'm going to rope drop. That way I can plan accordingly, because sometimes there might be a ride that you want to rope drop and then book again later. So that's usually what I use my rope dropping for. So I typically rope drop some of my favorite rides because then I want to be able to do them again a second time with my Genie Plus. So if you do standby on rope drop, you can do it again with your Genie Plus. So basically that is just my mental way to organize it all. And I fill in that chart for every day that I go. And then I usually keep a picture of it on my phone if I'm with my family, or sometimes I just know it and I just don't have to because I just know I know what we're going to do. So those templates are available on my Etsy shop if that's something that you're interested in downloading. I have one for all 4 of the Disney World parks. If you want one for Disneyland, send me a message and I can make that for you as well.
Chris, her and her husband are going to in January and are only going to Epcot and Studios. How likely are we to need Genie Plus?
Depends on what you want to ride. I would say if you want to ride Remy and Frozen at Epcot, you're going to need Genie Plus. You can only really do one or the other of those, and those are like the biggest reasons to have Genie Plus, in my opinion. Studios, yes, you're going to need it. The waits there get way too long. Yeah. In January, you're not going to see as long of wait times, but you're still going to see hour plus wait lines for Slinky Dog, Rise of the Resistance, at least 45, if not more, for Rock and Roller Coaster, Tower of Terror, So if those are all on your list, that would be something that I would go ahead and do Genie Plus for.
I know Ginge asked earlier, did they include the photos with Genie Plus, did they include them with Disneyland because of like its size versus Disney World? Is that maybe why they did that? I don't really know. I would say it's more because of locals going, and like they want to provide as much value to locals as possible versus people are willing to pay a little bit more for Disney World for things, honestly, because locals in California, like they have to have a reason to keep coming back. That's why they have special events. That's why they have extended hours. Their hours almost always till midnight in Disneyland in general when it's busy, and that they have they just apply things for locals. So I think they have like, well, how do we get locals to buy this program? Well, we'll include their photos, right? And I think that is probably why they have it more than size. It has to do with the demographic of people who's visiting the park. So,
and I will say Disneyland has been doing that far longer than Disney World. It's been less than a year. And Disneyland has had that program, I think, almost from the start. I don't know exactly when it started in Disneyland, but it's been almost from the start that they were including photos with your Genie Plus purchase once Genie Plus kind of started.
I think it was from the start.
Yeah. So it's a newer thing at Disney World, but Disneyland, it's always been there for them, which is why you've seen, like Kate mentioned earlier, Disneyland has always been a slightly higher price point. Even when Genie Plus was always $15 at Disney World, it was like $25 or $30 still at Disneyland because of that added photo.
I think it started at $20 and then it creeped its way up to where it's at now. Right. But yeah, Disneyland is more of a local theme park, and Disney World's more of a vacation destination. That's true to a certain extent. There are locals at Disney World, and there are a lot of people that visit Disneyland on vacation as well. But for sure, because it's located right in the middle of the city, it's for sure more of a locals park in general. And so you will see Disneyland tends to cater to their locals because they need to. And that's why you also see a lot more Magic Key discounts for things, but from parking to almost all the food you get, not all of it, but almost all the food you get. They have a lot more discounts and freebies and fun stuff for their pass holders versus Disney World. There's not that much they give pass holders, quite honestly. For the amount that I pay for it, it's actually a little ridiculous how little I get for it. Just saying.
And it's like, like we were talking about last episode, last time we had I think it was like our Q&A episode, but talking about like, Disney World gave 30% off of merch during June. If you're there during
1 month, if you happen to be there. And considering a lot of their pass holders are not in state, like there's a lot of out-of-state pass holders for Disney World because it is a destination. It's silly that it was just June. Like, okay. Great.
Right. Okay. Are there any other questions on your end of the chat? I'm good on my end.
I don't think I've seen anything else.
I think we answered most of them as we went, or tried our best to. Again, a couple episodes from now, we're going to talk about those park strategies for every park. So if you're looking for that information, stay tuned. It's to come. I just pulled up our list of kind of what we're doing next. Next week, we are going to be chatting about some park hacks. So kind of giving you a list of our combined top 15, hopefully-ish, park hacks to help make your trip easier. So that will be next week's topic. So come join us for that if that's something you're interested in. And if you missed anything that we chatted about tonight, then you will be able to find this episode available on our podcast and on our YouTube, both here in the next couple days, once Kate and I have a chance to get that all figured out and handled and edited and all that lovely stuff. It will be available for you guys there.
No, we do have Mom Street shirts. I'm not wearing mine today, and you aren't either. Actually,
I know. I have my Winnie the Pooh shirt on. You're wearing your new Disney Cicerone shirt, though.
Yes, I did make a new shirt. This is my Fearless shirt, or Fearless, depending on how you read it. But it includes all names of the original female animators and the women that made in Imagineering, that kicked off Imagineering and helped build Disneyland. So it is inspiring stories. I've told so many inspiring stories from them and the ways that they were fearless in their field. And I wanted to be able to embody that and wear that and be like, I remember all these things these women went through in places that were it was not easy for them to do what they were doing, and I'm just going to choose to do the same. So this
I
shirt's
love it.
inspired by that and has all of their names on it in a little Disneyland font, and their names are in Disneyland font, and it is also it is on DisneyCicerone.com is where that is in Mr. Lickett bio for that. But we also do have
also, yep, where you can find our Mom Street stuff.
Mom Street stickers, and we have Mom Street shirts and hoodies and long sleeves and stuff as well. So, well, this has been really fun and educating. I feel like I've learned something on this.
Good. That's what I'm always hoping to do is, like I said, I'm not out here trying to gatekeep and say, oh, you have to hire me to be able to find. No, like I want you guys to know the information. If you still need help, message me, let me know. Like, just because you ask me a million questions doesn't mean I'm going to charge you a consultation fee. Like that's not my MO. That's not my gig here. If you want to use me for your trip, I'm more than happy to help. But if you just have questions, I'm also more than happy to answer those. So
you want to take Jackie on your trip? Just saying.
I'm a very good travel companion. Ask Becca. We had a very good time on our trip. No, I'm not hired, not sponsored. Becca and I went as friends. Don't.
Becca's also really great at holding bags for photos, so
she is.
God bless Becca.
Well, with that all being said, thank you all for joining us this evening for Mom Street. We appreciate you guys interacting in the chat and hanging out with us, and we look forward to chatting with you again next week.
Yes, thank you guys for being with us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Have a great night.